Hello everybody and welcome to Capricorn season. So we've had Sagittarius shoot its arrow up and out, and the arrow always has to come down and land once again on the earth, and with that landing we come into Capricorn season. Capricorn energy really is about bringing us back to earth after all the adventure of Sagittarius season, and really supports us to put in place structures and boundaries that will support us to work towards our goals tirelessly, eventually enabling us to create our legacy. So that is what Capricorn is all about. Please do be aware, if you're not already, that I do work with the true sidereal zodiac, which considers the placement of the stars or the planets as where they are in the sky according to astronomy. So it's astronomically correct. If you do need any more explanation about sidereal astrology, why I use it and what the difference is between sidereal and tropical Western astrology, I will put a link which will allow you to go back to my first in this series of astrological pieces to get all the information you need about sidereal astrology. So, sidereal Capricorn season, what are the dates for that? Well, this year they are from the 21st of January to the 15th of February. Now, do be aware again that I am in Melbourne, Australia. So, depending on where you are in the world, those dates, the changeover of when the sun moves into the constellation of Capricorn may actually occur a day earlier on the calendar. It's the same time, but just we are ahead of you. So you may find that it's actually from the 20th of January to the 14th of February where you are. More than happy to clarify that for you if you want to get in touch. For us here in Australia, the sun moves into the constellation of Capricorn during the day on the 21st of January. So it officially rises in Capricorn from the 22nd. Also, if you do know about sidereal astrology or you've gone and read the piece that I've just referred to before, then you will notice that the dates are not set in stone because we're taking into account the precession of the equinoxes in sidereal astrology. And what that means is over a period of nearly 3/4 of a century, the dates will change by approximately a day. So those dates obviously are very different to the tropical Western dates for Capricorn that most people are familiar with. Tropical Western Capricorn finishes before sidereal Capricorn even starts, and that's what not taking into account that precession of the equinoxes can do. It's a really big change. That can mean if you have identified as a Capricorn or as potentially as an Aquarius or as a Sagittarius, and the dates are all different for you, then you're going to have potentially a bit of an identity crisis with me telling you what the true dates are that the sun rises in Capricorn. So most often in this case, if you really strongly identify with Capricorn energy, it's because there is a lot of that energy in your chart. So even if your sun is not actually in Capricorn, you're probably going to find that your moon or your ascendant, or you've got a stellium, which is 2 or more planets in the sign of Capricorn. So don't worry about that. Please get in touch, do a reading with me, and that will all be clarified for you. And again, there'll be links below for you to have access as to how to do that. So who really needs to be aware of this information? Obviously, people who are born within that date range do need to be aware. However, we'd go back a day, so to January the 20th in Australia, or even the 19th in other parts of the world. If you were born on those days, then depending on how old you are, it may be that Capricorn was the season, that the sun was in Capricorn on those dates, because those dates do change over time. So again, contact me if you'd like clarity for that for yourself. Being born between these dates means means that your sun is in the sign of Capricorn, and that means that you identify as a Capricorn. So you most likely see yourself as determined, as disciplined, and as very practical. People who know their astrology chart to some degree and can identify that they either have their moon or their ascendant, their rising sign is Capricorn. Then again, this information that I'm going to share with you all about Capricorn from the perspective of medical astrology is going to be really pertinent, because those are the top 3 planets or positions in the chart for medical astrology. So if your moon is in Capricorn, that means you need to feel the Capricorn characteristics or qualities for your own emotional well-being. The moon is all about our emotions. So if you have a moon in Capricorn, this is going to mean that you need to feel definitely in control of your destiny, and also that others respect you. If your ascendant or your rising sign is Capricorn, this means that that's the sign that was on the eastern horizon when you were born, and it is what you are becoming or what you are working towards in this lifetime. Capricorn rising means you're working towards creating your legacy in this lifetime. So that is, obviously we all are to some extent, but that is the real purpose of your life for this lifetime. Lastly, again, if you can read your astrology chart and you can see that you've got Capricorn in the 6th house, so especially if it's on the cusp of the 6th house, but really if it's anywhere in your 6th house, then that means that this information about health and well-being is going to be influenced by Capricorn, because the 6th house is our house of health and well-being. If you don't know what I'm talking about with regards to houses, again, you can go back to the piece on Aries, which was the first piece in this astrological series, because it's the first sign of the zodiac, and you'll get more information about houses there. Also, of course, if you have a significant relationship with someone who is a Capricorn, so you might be their parent, their child, their partner, either romantically or in a business sense, sibling, good friend, it's great to have this information to understand those people a bit better and perhaps share it with them so they can understand themselves. So Capricorn is the last of the 3 earth signs in the zodiac. So as I mentioned, it really does bring our energy back to earth. It's almost like we start anew with Capricorn. So we've had our new year, which started in Sagittarius with that great outward looking, positive, exploratory energy, which I think is perfect for the new year. But now it's like, okay, we're a few weeks into the new year. Now we've got to get our feet firmly planted back on the earth and get ready to take responsible action towards what it is we're trying to achieve. So I think it's great energy for this time of the year. Most people around about now are starting to get back to school or work from after following the festive season. Some people are already back, and if you are, you tend to have those first week or two when you're back in January and everything feels a bit surreal after the festive season, but this is again where you're really going to hit the ground running and start working towards whatever it is you've set yourself up for this year. If you do need any more reminders about the earth element, which is really, it's the 4 elements are the most fundamental parts of medical astrology. The first astrological sign that was an earth element was Taurus, so you could hop back over to that, and again there'll be a link below for you to be able to access that piece and find out more about earth. Tropical Western astrology, so this common form of astrology that most people are aware of, which is not what we're talking about here, does tend to associate the zodiac with the seasons. I mean, that's really what it's based on. It's based on the fact that the first day of spring in the Northern Hemisphere is the first day of Aries, and it's just stuck with that system even though the planets have moved according to the precession of the equinoxes. So the seasonal aspects of astrology really only work well in the Northern Hemisphere. They don't work terribly well for us here in the Southern Hemisphere. And so Capricorn season in tropical Western astrology is in early winter. So in sidereal astrology, that moves Capricorn season more to late winter in the Northern Hemisphere and late summer in the Southern Hemisphere. And I feel like that's really appropriate energetically. So it's at this point when the season really sets in. You know, it's not until later in the season that you get the really extreme weather, the really cold weather. I know there's just been a big winter storm in some parts of the US. There's really hot weather here in Australia. We've got, 40 degrees Celsius in the west of the country. We're hitting 30 degrees many days in a row here on the eastern side. So, this season is in its stride. Its feet are on the earth. It's moving forward at this time of the year. And I think that goes really well with Capricorn energy. Capricorn is determined to make its mark and just keep on going until it does. And believe you me, here in Melbourne, the summer has made a mark already and we've still got weeks and weeks of it to go. Okay, the sign of Capricorn is ruled by boundary-oriented Saturn. Capricorn needs this structure and the restriction offered by Saturn's energy in order to have the discipline it needs to achieve its goals and its purpose, which is what Capricorn's all about. It's the first sign in the zodiac to be ruled by Saturn, and it's the only sign to be ruled by Saturn in modern astrology. In traditional astrology, Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn. The symbol of Capricorn is the goat. So for me, I just picture like a mountain goat climbing up the never-ending slope towards the summit, using his horns to forcibly move anything that's out of his way. That is a beautiful picture of Capricorn energy. In astrology, your chart is divided into 12 houses, which refer to the 12 different areas of life. And if a planet or a sign is in a house, that will give us information about what area of life they're going to have an effect on. And each of the signs also rules one of the houses. So they each have a particular area of life that they've got a particular affinity to, that they're particularly comfortable with. And for Capricorn, being the 10th sign, it rules the 10th house. The 10th house is all about public status and reputation. Now, most commonly this is talked about as the house of career and professional life, because that is how most of us achieve public status and recognition. But it can also refer to things that change your public status, like getting married or getting divorced. That it's a more old-fashioned way of looking at things. It doesn't, affect us as much these days, but it still does have an effect. So those things sit in the 10th house as well. And Capricorn, we always must remember that it really is seeking recognition. So it's more than willing to do the work, but it really wants to be recognized by others for doing it and for what it achieves. And so that is what the 10th house is all about. Each sign of the zodiac also has a particular body type associated with it, which is largely based on the elements. So, as I mentioned, Capricorn is an earth sign, but Capricorn is not a typical earth looking energy. So, this is a bit of a generalization, and it's certainly not to say that everybody who has a Capricorn sun, moon or ascendant looks like this. And more commonly, rather than the sun or the moon, it's the ascendant, because the ascendant, the first house, has to do with our physical body. So typically a Capricorn energy will produce somebody who is quite skin and bone in appearance. So they're thin, especially their limbs can tend to be long and thin, and they tend to be quite a bony person. There's not a lot of flesh on them. There can certainly be Capricorns who are more like their earth element, which is much more solid and robust. But have a look around you. See who you can think about who's a Capricorn who might meet that skin and bone, long and lanky limbs. I certainly do know some myself. Capricorns can tend to start their early lives, they may not be terribly healthy, but they tend to become more vital, to improve their vitality as they get older. However, it's common that throughout their lives they'll struggle to get over illnesses quickly. Okay, from an Eastern medical point of view, Capricorn constitution is talked about as cold and dry. So you kind of think of the earth in that way, it's cold and dry. Capricorns, we do need to mention as well, can tend to be quite easily depressed or easily brought into quite a low mood. It would have been talked about in older times more as melancholy, which is still a word we use, but we don't tend to use it so much in the medical sense. So prone to low mood is really how I would describe it. And they really need, if they're unwell, to have good vibes around them. They need good friends and family cheering them up. They can find that they respond really well to music. So, leaving them alone to recover from an illness is not the way to go with a Capricorn. Capricorn rules the following body parts: the skin, hair, nails and teeth, bones and joints, especially the knees, ligaments, cartilage and tendons, the parathyroid gland and the gallbladder. So anything to do with bones, it's really easy to remember for Capricorn because of that description of them as being quite bony. And also then the joints, I think of kind of knobbly knees to remind myself of that Capricorn energy. And the ligaments, cartilage and tendons that go with joints as well come in there. So it's kind of logical with Capricorn as to thinking about what parts of the body it rules. What that means is that people with a lot of Capricorn energy can tend towards ailments in those areas, so injuries or illnesses in those particular body parts. Skin diseases are common, including psoriasis, hives and eczema. Joint problems, obviously, including gout, and as I mentioned before, depression and low mood. Also, chronic fatigue is a big one for Capricorns. They are apparently the most common sign to be diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, and that really is a result of their drive and determination to just keep going, to keep on moving towards their goals, that they can really forget to stop to look after themselves. So if you do have a Capricorn loved one, take note of that. Constipation is one last thing that can tend to plague Capricorns, and that's due to that sort of Saturn energy of restriction and holding on to things and putting boundaries around things, not really around the fact that Capricorn rules the digestive system. It doesn't have any rulership of the digestive system, but just an interesting common condition for them as well. As you probably know, if you do follow me, I love to talk about the chakras, the energy centers that we all have in our systems and that work on mental, physical, emotional and spiritual levels in all of us, and thinking about the relationship between each of the signs and the chakras. So Capricorn to me has strong connection definitely to the third energy center, the third chakra, or what we call the power energy, often commonly known as the solar plexus. And that's because this is the energy that gives us the drive to take action, and it's also about self-confidence and self-esteem, which is a really big thing for Capricorn. And also the first energy center, so the root chakra, or I like to call this one the foundation energy, and that's because this is the energy that allows us and needs us to bring in structure to create stability and safety. So all really Capricorn valid things. So let's talk about what you can do if you have a lot of Capricorn energy. What are some preventative measures that you can take with your health and well-being from the point of view, the perspective of even star, 5-star well-being? So we have 5 areas that we cover. The first one being movement. As I briefly mentioned, Capricorns can tend to get really caught up in what they're doing in order to achieve their goals, and they forget to do things like bring in exercise, make sure they sleep well enough, make sure they're eating good food. So they really can tend to be not holistically terribly healthy people, Capricorns, because they're too driven. So what I would say about that is, look, really it needs to be a priority. If you've got lots of that Capricorn energy, prioritize movement, even if you can get it in ways that don't mean it's taking up any more time in your day. So walking to work, walking part of the way from work, getting off the train early, driving less of the distance to work, having a sit-stand desk, walking up the stairs, not taking the elevator, so many things. I will put a link to a blog that I have all about movement, which will give you heaps and heaps of ideas. I do also suggest for Capricorn that some really high intensity or endurance type of exercise or sport is going to appeal to them because they want to achieve and they want to keep going. So that could be something to explore if that is you. But look, the bottom line is find something that you enjoy in terms of movement, Capricorns, and just do it regularly. You really need to prioritize it. Then sleep as well, as I mentioned, something that they don't tend to prioritize much either. They like to burn the candle at both ends, so they can tend to be night owls, but then they also want to be up at the crack of dawn to get on with the next thing. That does not last. Your system is designed to need sleep. It needs to rest and repair overnight. So again, it's a matter of prioritizing sleep. And don't forget that I mentioned that thing about chronic fatigue syndrome and Capricorns. You've got to get on top of it before it gets on top of you. And again, I'll put a link to my blog all about sleep to give you heaps of ideas about your sleep hygiene and your sleep opportunity, increasing those things to help you prioritize your sleep. Then next we will talk about food. So again, Capricorns do need to be supported and encouraged and make sure they themselves prioritize eating well. Feeding them high fiber food, so goat food, as my medical astrology teacher called it, is really good for a Capricorn. Well cooked, warming food. So remembering that really, the cold Saturnian energy, it's a really cold, contracting energy, and you don't want to put more cold, hard foods into that system. Avoiding acidic foods and including alkaline foods is really important for Capricorns as well, because they can tend to get out of balance with that. Fresh vegetables and fruits, which of course is the same for everyone. Did you know that you should eat at least 7 cups of vegetables each day? That is a lot of vegetables. So some good ones for Capricorn include spinach, cabbage, coconut, asparagus, strawberries, blueberries, citrus, leeks, onions, grapes, broccoli and pomegranates. Also some other specific ones which are high in the mineral calcium phosphate, which tends to be a mineral that is easily depleted in people with a lot of Capricorn energy. So some foods that they can include to do this is lentils, beans, eggs, meat, wheat, figs, plums, kale, prunes and raisins. Obviously wheat only if you're gluten tolerant. Some herbs that Capricorns can eat, can make sure they're using in their cooking, are parsley, ginger and alfalfa. There's also a lot of herbs that are useful for Capricorns. They're very specific to what kind of conditions you're dealing with, so please contact me if you need any more information about that. But some common ones which are really good for Capricorns to use as teas include chamomile, elderflower and St. John's wort. Then let's talk about surroundings. The main thing that I talk about for this is essential oils. So because these are things that are beautiful to use, and they also bring in effects onto your whole being as well. So that is how I love to work, in a holistic way, using techniques and products that are going to affect your whole self. for the better, of course. So some that I've researched that are going to be great to support Capricorn energy are birch, cassia, cumin, and laurel leaf. If you go to the blog, then you'll see the description of the particular energetic properties for those oils. And then lastly, the fifth aspect of even star 5-star well-being, I just call being. And for Capricorns, we are focusing on this kind of drive to overwork and the tendency to low mood with our being strategies. So laughter, really essential to combat that low mood. So make sure you're scheduling in time with good friends, with funny or entertaining family members, or if you can't do that, at least schedule in some time to read or watch something funny on TV. Having fun, so doing things that give you pleasure, really important and often neglected by Capricorn. So make sure you're putting one thing at least in your calendar every week. Slowing down, obviously the Capricorn drive makes that really difficult for them, so getting into nature is going to help. We automatically slow down when we get into nature. Capricorns are always trying to climb that mountain of their ambition, but in order to balance that out, they need to come back to earth. You know, even just walking barefoot on the ground is going to be a great thing for Capricorns. Even if you can just do that in your backyard, you don't have to go, drive for hours out into the country or get into a beautiful park near you. Music helps Capricorns access their right brain because they tend to be very left brain driven. And that's a really easy thing to use at any time. Energy healing helps to balance emotions and to avoid depression. So things like Reiki, kinesiology, and acupuncture can be really beneficial. Bach flowers we also talk about with medical astrology, because Edward Bach assigned one flower to each of the 12 signs of the zodiac, and the one for Capricorn is mimulus. But there again, like the herbs, there are lots of others, and it depends on what you're trying to combat as to what I'd recommend. So please get in touch if you'd like more information. So hope that was useful and informative, and I wish you all the best for Capricorn season. Go forth and achieve. Be well.